Hi, folks. Hannah here. I just want to give you a heads up before we start this episode that in our interview with our guest, Emma, we do talk about depression and suicide and how it's portrayed in media. Emma is very passionate about addressing mental health issues in a healthy way in the work that she does, and it's a good discussion. But if any of our listeners aren't in a good place to listen to that talk right now, you can feel free to skip to the brainstorming at about 6.5, 7 minutes in. Thanks.
A retired FBI agent with psychological gifts becomes torn between stopping a diabolical plot and getting turkeys off the Thanksgiving menu for good.
Somebody write this.
Hi, and welcome to Somebody Write This, where we use a random plot generator to give us an idea, and then we brainstorm how that could be a thing somebody might want to write. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Jenny. And to help us with our brainstorming today, we have a guest. Let's welcome Emma G. Rose. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Emma, I know when we talked, you have something that you're really, really passionate about in writing, and that's specifically the looking at YA fiction dealing with mental health. So just give us a little bit of backstory about this. What maybe started your passion for this? What have you been doing with it? Just tell us a little bit about your take on that.
All right. So I guess the first thing to say about that is I like to write stories that address mental health in maybe less overt ways. You know, I'm not trying to tell kids how to be mentally healthy directly, because I think that often, the preachiness kind of shuts them off. But I do want to tell stories about real people dealing with real issues. And there's a lot of mental health concerns that pop up in my stories, both on purpose and accidentally. The reason for that is when I was 20, my 17-year-old cousin died by suicide. And that started me on this path of how do I deal with this situation? What do I do with these feelings? And at 20, you may not technically be in the YA bracket, but you're very much still there emotionally and mentally, especially when dealing with something like that. So I started writing my first novel, Nothing's Ever Lost, kind of as just a way to cope. It was my own little private way of coping with what was going on. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized that maybe it needed to not be so private, and that there were other people who could benefit from kind of what I was exploring in that book. So often my work is very sad, but it's also funny because life is funny. And Nothing's Ever Lost, for example, addresses mental health and death and grief and dying through the lens of two teenagers who die in a car accident and go on an epic adventure through the afterlife.
I like that. I'm curious about, as you transitioned from, starting to write this as a sort of a cathartic exercise to get your own thoughts out about this. When you ultimately decided you wanted to be able to share that, how did that change or affect the way that you wrote that story?
Honestly, I'm not sure that it did very much, because a good story is a good story. And It's a good story whether I'm the one reading it or whether the whole world is reading it. But there was one point in the story that I definitely went back and forth on whether it would be included. There is a scene in the story that occurs directly after the suicide death of a character. And suicide is it's a delicate topic. There are ways to address it that are healthy and helpful, and there are ways that are directly harmful. So I really went back and forth with whether I would include this scene. Also, because beyond those kind of global issues, this scene was very personal because it was written with my cousin in mind. So this was, if this imaginary world was real, here's what I think happened to my cousin immediately after. And so that was incredibly personal. And I definitely went back and forth several times. I took it out, I put it back in. I finally settled on including it. I shared it with some family members ahead of time to make sure that they were also comfortable, but I did end up including it, and I think it makes the story better. And it brings an important thing to light, which is that most people who survive suicide attempts immediately say, I wish I hadn't done that. Like the overwhelming majority of survivors say, that was a terrible idea. I should never have done that.
Wow. I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. You talked about there are good and healthy ways to address this and ways that are harmful. What are some of the lines there? What are ways that people address this topic that are harmful to the community?
Yes. Okay. So I actually come from a journalism background. So this was also something I studied in journalism, because you may have heard of, kind of spikes in suicide after reporting of a suicide. And they found that the reason for that is not the mere mention of the word, which a lot of people, suicide is a scary word. We can't even mention it. But it's not the mention of the word, it's the glamorizing of the act. So when you go over and over how somebody did it and why they did it and make it almost their whole identity, you make suicide seem like this glamorous thing, right? Kind of the same way that we've said, okay, only bad guys can smoke
Yeah.
on TV because we don't want to glamorize that action. So when you focus more on the act itself than on the person and the families involved, you create dangerous situations because people reading it envision themselves naturally as the character, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
And so if you envision yourself as this character and you see this like glorious epic story where they die by suicide and it's this amazing thing that's so beautiful, that can be really dangerous for somebody, especially who's kind of teetering on that edge.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I really, I appreciate people like you who are wanting to share these stories and wanting to connect with people who may be feeling this without doing the work to make sure that you're not hurting them, or because art is powerful. Good art is powerful, and you want to make sure that you're using that power responsibly. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
We will definitely give you a chance to talk a little bit more about your work at the end of the show. We are going to jump from a serious discussion into something maybe a little bit lighter. So let's jump into our brainstorming. So as a reminder, our plot is a retired FBI agent with psychological gifts becomes torn between stopping a diabolical plot and getting turkeys off the Thanksgiving menu for good. So what makes this a dilemma for him?
Well, first of all, I think our FBI agent, he must be vegan, right? So he has some deep personal concerns about Thanksgiving turkeys and the eating of turkeys. But I think also the reason he's vegan is because his psychological gift is the ability to talk to animals.
He communicates with animals, of course. Okay.
So, now he has a personal stake, and when we give him a personal stake, clearly he doesn't want these animals to be eaten because he knows them personally. His buddy Tom has helped him with many crimes.
Sorry, that image is fantastic, as retired FBI agent with a sidekick turkey is like...
I'm just picturing him, like the turkey, like walking around in his living room, like, hey Tom, what's up?
Hanging out in his apartment. And I'm intrigued by the idea that turkeys would be good FBI agents.
Well, they could really go undercover with amazing ability. I mean, I just don't think you'd ever guess.
It's Agent
right?
Doolittle.
It is Agent Doolittle.
Don't worry, man. We've got our best man on the case.
Okay, so we have this character, we have his backstory. He's been doing this for years now. He's retired, or maybe something traumatic happened and he retired a little early. We don't know yet. I think we need to get into why he can either get the turkeys off the menu or stop a diabolical plot. Like, what is happening that makes?
I was going to ask. Yes.
Yeah, what makes both not possible?
Well, I think that the only way he can bring the plot to the attention of the FBI would be to reveal his powers. And he has spent his entire career hiding this because, you don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, by the way, I can talk to squirrels and turkeys and mice. So if he admits and brings in Tom as kind of, exhibit A, then he can probably stop this plot. But if he doesn't, he's going to have to somehow convince the FBI to act on this super off the wall thing with no proof whatsoever.
Okay. So he has a choice between revealing his powers and stopping the plot, or revealing his powers and removing turkey, or does revealing his powers mean that he can't get turkey off the menu?
And how does Tom feel about all this?
I mean, Tom clearly has a stake in the game, but he's been playing both sides too. So, much as he wants turkeys off the menu, he also sees the importance of what's going on here. But you're right. Why does he have to choose?
Why would stopping the plot, like, I'm trying to figure out if they influence each other. Like, if somehow, if you get turkeys off the menu, the diabolical plot happens, like that launches that. Or
the diabolical plot. So the diabolical plot has something to do with tofu. There's a company or like some kind of meat substitute, right? So there's a company creating this meat substitute, and it's going to like put a mind control device in every human or something. And maybe not mind control, but something like that, right? So we're going to influence.
So something that the agent would normally be for, except for like the side effects or the actual, yay, meat substitute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe this is the whole, maybe he started this whole campaign to get turkeys off the menu. He starts this big initiative, and he partners with this meat substitute company who is specifically working on something, a turkey replacement, and like gets all connected with them. And it's a big thing where they're going to provide, free turkeys to, 100,000 people. And so it's this awesome thing that's really a step toward getting turkeys off the menu. And then he finds out that they're super evil and these free turkeys are going to be mind controlling people or something, putting something inside people's bodies. And so he has to decide, okay, what do I do with this? Because if I stop the initiative altogether, it's going to look crazy, or it's going to look difficult. So yeah, I think this happens in progress. I think he's starting to get turkeys off the Thanksgiving menu, and he's making progress with that and has to decide whether to halt it to stop the plot.
Okay,
right.
Who's behind this plot? Is it like the Chick-fil-A cows who are like,
that was my thought as well.
Us?
It could be. Like the animals are an integral part of this, so there's got to be a secret nefarious double cross kind of thing happening where they've been on his side up to now, but like this is too important. And maybe even it was the animals that brought this whole initiative to his attention in the first place.
Yeah, I think I need to figure out what the plot is intending to do. I think it makes sense. You're distributing food to people, and so it's something that they ingest that changes something in them. That's where I'm stuck. That's what I'm trying to figure. I think that will, because it's got to be something that's significant. That's significantly wrong and upsetting.
Okay, so there's a difference between, say, feeding humans fake meat that will make them want only fake meat, so they don't eat animals anymore, which would be weird but good. Mm-hmm. in a vegan sense, or like, do they want revenge on the humans?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a revenge thing. So maybe it turns humans into plant zombies. Like it's gonna genetically alter them so that they actually only.
So the animals can eat them.
That's what it's. Yeah, it turns them from the predator into the prey somehow. Whether it. Yeah, maybe
it would have to be gradual. That sounds like a drastic but like they start photosynthesizing and
right. But that this Thanksgiving initiative is like the big public kickoff, so that now people super trust this meat product and look at how this meat replacement product and look at how good it is, and so now they're going to buy more and more. And once they hit like a critical amount, like they've eaten this much. It's altered their body enough that now the cows can eat them.
Right, yeah. If you liked our Thanksgiving turkey, you should try our other meat products.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah, and maybe all the different meat products have different things that make them weak to the predatory nature of specific animals. Like maybe the turkey does something where like birds now feathers paralyze them or something, like completely stop their nervous system from functioning, and so a bird can just touch them and then the human can't move anymore and now the bird can eat them.
So that's what Hitchcock's birds were up to. Oh no!
Yes.
Yeah, we know.
This is the birds. The birds too. You could do this also in a way in which there is like this we've got Tom, the friendly FBI turkey. But, but you could also have this elaborate animal kingdom civil war, essentially, where there are some who absolutely want to take their place as rulers of the world and are like, yeah, we have to get rid of the humans to do this, and others who are like, no, we can totally live in harmony with them. And so you could have
each other.
exactly, yeah, you could totally have this fascinating political animal kingdom underworld in which there's a resistance and there's a leader who's riling all the turkeys up to be willing to attack the humans. And
oh my gosh, it's totally like carnivore versus herbivore.
Yeah.
The predators who are on the side of the humans saying, "But we eat meat too," and they're like, "Well, have some fake turkey, sucker."
Okay, so we've hit title time. Our title is The Daring Plan of His Father.
Oh, easy. I got this.
Okay.
So clearly, the whole diabolical plot is actually the plan, the brainchild of Tom, the turkey's father.
Of course.
Right? But Tom is against it. He's actually on the side of the carnivores, which, that's crazy. But he's on the side of the carnivores because he has lived so closely with our retired FBI agent, Dave, that he just can't imagine this scenario. So he's actually going against his own father's plot. And he hasn't told Dave because he's like, I can't, I'm going to try to get Dave to help me with this without actually revealing my part in it because he might be mad. He's totally going to be mad. And so the big twist of the story is that it's Tom's father who has set all this in motion.
I love it. So I feel like we're leaning more and more toward Tom being a much more central character. How much of the story is told from Tom's point of view versus Agent Dave's?
Oh, I think it's probably going to be a 50-50 split. I'm a big fan of POV switches. I know it doesn't always work, but I use it a lot in my books. And I think that definitely we could do a back and forth here where we see, we start with Dave and we start to see what he thinks is going on, and then we switch to Tom. But I don't think we necessarily reveal, even when we're in Tom's POV, I think it takes a while for us to figure out what a big role he's actually played because he doesn't want to reveal it to anyone.
Because I feel like that makes Tom kind of like the reverse of a hippie or a naturalist. I mean, in the sense that, instead of don't eat meat, he's like, yes, eat meat because that's what keeps the world in balance is you have these food chains.
I could see Tom being in favor of fake meat because it's good for him and it's good for everybody he knows, but not to the point of revenge. He just wants people to not eat meat. He doesn't want animals to then eat people.
Right.
And so he's he's the peaceful.
In the end, the big twist at the end is that the plants are planning their own uprising. But you don't find that out until the last page of the book.
Yes, that's setting it up for a sequel.
The sunflower or something. It's they're always taking my seeds. I will take their seeds.
I'm still just completely captivated by the idea of an unknown underground turkey resistance. I am so enthralled with this concept of having this entire world in elaborate plots and
it's a little bit scary.
It is. Well, and that would be so fun to play with that, we have this, Agent Dave only knows so much of this. Tom tells him a little bit about what's going on, but Tom knows a whole bunch more. And then halfway through, we find out that he knows a whole bunch more because his dad's involved. And all of a sudden then stakes get raised for him because he has to decide whether to fight against his family. And then at the very end of the book, you have a hint that the same thing is going on with the plants. You have the same kind of narrative shift that you get when switching from Dave to the first time you see Tom's world. You get that same shift from Tom and Dave's new world to the plant world.
Right, just last page and a half.
Yes. So, is the happy ending here?
Yeah. What does Dave choose?
What does Dave choose? Because we have an animal protagonist. I don't want the answer to be, yay, we'll keep on eating meat if we have an animal protagonist here. But maybe they find something else.
Maybe the goal of getting turkeys off the Thanksgiving menu for good is is not stopped, but just delayed. Like, oh, we thought this was the answer, but we'll have to find another way for people to stop eating turkey, Tom. I'm sorry. And Tom's like, yeah, I know.
Dave is still pro veganism. You know, he's still pro let's not eat animals, but he's not willing to sacrifice all of humanity to make that happen either. And
Right.
Tom also is like, I'm also pro this, but let's achieve it in an ethical way, you know, by not turning people into plant zombies.
There we go. That works. It could be one of those things where he, you know, had been fighting for this for a long time, and then this big company partnership came up, and he thought, well, this is, you know, too good to be true, but this is awesome. This could be the big catalyst we need to get everybody off of meat and into something just as good. And then so it's a little bit of a, well, we have to keep fighting the fight we believe in. We're just going to have to do it the long way and the hard way.
Well, and along the course, I think we have to blow up the alternative meat distribution plant. Because then it's not really it's not like, oh, quick, nobody eat this. It's more like the distribution is unable to happen by Thanksgiving because we have managed to blow up the plant before then.
Did the animals reveal themselves to all of humanity?
No.
This book?
No,
okay.
No. That's probably like book 3.
Okay, yeah. when they have to fight the plants together.
Right.
That's the other way that maybe it could happen is if he, like, Tom gave a press conference.
Okay, look at people.
So they find some other way and try to keep fighting. It's just more difficult now because they don't have this this amazing thing that would get everybody off of meat in one fell swoop.
Right.
Okay. I can kind of get on board with that. Are there aspects of this that we haven't discussed or that is missing that are still important to address?
Well, how did Dave meet Tom, and how did they start working together?
Was Tom on a mission for his father? If he had those powers, if he had those gifts for a while, like, he might have drawn the attention of the animal kingdom.
Right. I feel like Dave was pretty much born with this. You know, like, he's always been able to do this. He talked to his family dog and stuff. And then he was coached by his family to not reveal this because people would think he was crazy because his family kind of thought he was nuts. And then, so he must run into Tom. And what's the lifespan of a turkey? Because we have to take that into account. Because
that's a good question.
I think, you know,
to the Google.
How long could they really work together?
Domestic turkey, 10 years.
Okay. So he was well into his career before he met Tom. And the difference between Tom and every other animal he's met is that Tom was, like, kind of interested in working with humans. And Dave never really knew why. He just thought Tom was like a curious turkey. And it turns out this is a direct response to the work his father is doing.
Yeah. And does Tom then just, like, because Tom ends up on Dave's side, is it because, like, Dave's the first human he's really, like, obviously the first real human he's really gotten to know because it's the first one he knew who could talk to him. Right. Maybe Tom is also just, like, kind of intrigued by that. Maybe he learns he really likes solving mysteries or something. Like, maybe he's just captivated by the work and does that for a while and then grows to really respect what Dave is trying to do.
And Dave rescued him from the farm where he lived.
Yeah.
So Dave was like, this turkey is really cool. I'm going to take him home with me. And so he bought him from the farmer. And now Tom lives in style in a spare room in Dave's house. And, you know, gets all his worms delivered. Like, it's a good deal.
Yes.
So Dave was, like, already thinking, maybe I'll start with turkeys. Get them off because Thanksgiving is a big thing. That's a good starter point for the vegan initiative.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I am on board with this. So, listeners, we're going to turn this over to you. This is a weird story, but it's kind of awesome. I would love to hear anybody's take on this. And as always, if you do write anything based off of this or inspired by this, send it in to us. We'll make sure and mention our email and our Twitter at the end of the show. Send it in to us, and we'll be happy to post it on our blog and read it on the podcast. We'd love to share the whatever our listeners are coming up with connected to this. All right, so as we start to wind down and move away from our brainstorming, we're going to take a second, as we always do, to shout out a story that we think our listeners should check out. Actually, I'm going to share something I am actually still in the middle of. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. I'm reading the book Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi, which is a fascinating memoir about a woman in Tehran who ends up having a book club for like 6 or 7 women to read essentially forbidden Western literature. She looks at not only the book club itself, but she taught Western literature at the university there for a while before regimes changed and rules changed, and she was kicked out and then let back in. And so she looks a lot at how these stories that she fell in love with, how they are received by completely different cultures, what they take from it, what they do not, what they love, what they hate. So it's a really fascinating memoir. Again, I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, and it's really, really fascinating to read. And so if you are interested in stories and how they relate across cultures and how they don't, it's a really excellent read. I'm going to toss it over to Jenny. What would you like to recommend for our listeners this week?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend. You guys know I like my medical dramas. There's a new one this year called The Transplant, which I've really been enjoying so far. It's about Dr. Hamed, who is a Syrian refugee, and he comes to the U.S. and gets a job in the hospital, and he has to start over as an intern, of course, because even though he has all the education and experience from working in the Syrian war zones and the hospitals over there, there's still he still has to climb the ladder of requirements to get to the station he was as a surgeon. And he has his little sister with him. She's about 12, 13, I think. And so it shows not only the medical drama, but the twist of him having this experience of working in a war zone, maybe with not as much of the equipment as they have at the hospital, or with outdated techniques. Also, there's the racism edge. With some of the patients are like, I want another doctor, and just like, brother. And they also address the mental health issue, because as the episodes go, you find out that he's experiencing quite a bit of PTSD from his experiences in Syria, and experiencing the death of his parents, who were also doctors. So far, it's pretty well written. So if you like medical dramas, try that one. I think you'll like it.
All right, we're going to toss it to Emma. What is a story that you think our listeners should check out?
I'm going to stay on theme for our conversation today.
Yes.
And if you want to read a book that's about the secret civilizations that animals build when we're not paying attention, there's a book called Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton. And it's told from the point of view of a crow. And the humans are experiencing a zombie apocalypse. The animals are kind of like, whoa, what is going on? And this crow is trying to figure out how to kind of unite the two worlds without getting eaten by zombie humans. It's very funny and very, very strange. Highly recommended.
That sounds fantastic. I'm going to have to add that to my read list for sure. All right. So, Emma, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go ahead and plug anything of your own, any your books, your other projects, whatever you would like to share with our listeners to check you out.
I have a brand new podcast that just launched a couple of days ago. It's called Indie Book Talk, and we talk exclusively about the expanding universe of indie books. So we review indie books, we talk to indie authors, we talk to indie bookstore owners, and it's a fun and exciting world that we're jumping into there. So you can find it anywhere podcasts are shared. Yeah, and then follow me on all the socials. I love talking to readers and talking about books. So I'm Life Imperative on Facebook and on Instagram, and you can find my website, emmagauthor.com, or imperativepressbooks.com, which is my publishing house.
Awesome. And I'll make sure and put those links in our episode description as well, so folks can find you. Once again, Emma, thank you so much. I'm glad you found us, and I'm glad we got to have you on the podcast. This was great.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Hooray, Tom.
Hooray, Tom. All right, folks, that's our episode. And as a reminder, you can find us every other Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Follow us on Twitter at WriteThisPod. And if you've been inspired by this episode and have questions or comments or fake meat recipes or anything else, email us at somebodywritethis@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then.
And as they say, one ox can't be sold to two butchers. One ox can't be sold to two butchers.
That's an apropos one for this one. Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't. purpose. I didn't want to change it either because it was so perfect.